a historical thriller based on real events. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you begins with a mystery so strange, so improbable, that for decades governments pretended it didn't exist. The year was 1941, and the Soviet Union, vast, frozen, paranoid, was on the brink of collapse. The Germans were pushing deep into Russian territory. The Kremlin feared not only an invasion, but extinction. Not extinction of their people, extinction of life. And that's how the story of the Soviet Doomsday Seed Vault begins. Not in a laboratory, but in a dying empire terrified of losing the most valuable resource on Earth, the genetic blueprint of the world's food supply. You may think you know the real story of seed vaults. You've heard of Svalbard, the famous one buried in the Arctic snow. But decades before Svalbard, before the Cold War became cold, before America even understood what the Soviets were building, there was a vault, a hidden one, a vault created in secrecy, guarded by hunger, protected by scientists who died rather than eat the food they were trying to save. A vault whose existence would vanish into archives, sealed behind rusted steel doors and government silence. Until now. This is the story of the vault that almost saved the world, and the empire that almost destroyed it.
The man who started it all was Nikolai Ivanovich Vavilov, a Russian botanist with a vision so bold that even his own government thought he was insane. In the early 20th century, Vavilov traveled the globe, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the deserts of North Africa, from the fields of Mexico to the jungles of Brazil. He collected seeds, roots, tubers, anything that could grow, adapt, mutate, or survive. He wasn't just a scientist, he was a hunter of evolution. By the 1930s, he had collected over 250,000 unique plant samples, creating the largest seed collection in human history, stored inside a quiet stone building in Leningrad. But for Vavilov, the collection was not just science, it was prophecy. He believed that humanity's greatest threat was not war or ideology, it was famine. And to fight famine, he needed diversity, genetic diversity, because one plague, one drought, one climate shift could wipe out an entire crop species. If that happened, millions would die. You could stop bullets with armies, you could stop invasions with tanks, but you couldn't stop hunger with ideology. So he built what was essentially the first global seed vault, decades before anyone else understood the idea. But here's the twist. The man who predicted famine would die from it. The Soviet Union of the 1930s was a country of contradictions. On one hand, it was industrializing at a speed the world had never seen. On the other hand, it was starving. Millions were dead from the Holodomor. Millions more were dying from failed harvests. And into this chaos stepped a man named Trofim Lysenko, a fake scientist, a political opportunist, and Vavilov's ideological enemy. While Vavilov believed in genetics, evolution, and natural selection, Lysenko believed that crops could be trained like soldiers. He claimed plants could learn to grow in harsh conditions simply because the government ordered them to. Stalin loved him because Lysenko promised miracles, and dictators love miracles. Vavilov, the real scientist, became an enemy of the state. In 1940, while traveling on a research expedition, he was arrested on charges of sabotaging Soviet agriculture. The charges were absurd, but the Soviet Union didn't need truth. He was thrown into a gulag. There, surrounded by the hunger he tried to prevent, Vavilov slowly starved to death. His dream survived. He did not.
Then came World War II.
Hitler surrounded Leningrad. The Germans bombed the city. Food lines vanished. People ate sawdust, wallpaper paste, even their pets. Inside the besieged city, hunger became a monster. It twisted people. It turned neighbor against neighbor. But in one quiet building near the Neva River, a group of Vavilov's students and colleagues had locked themselves inside the seed vault. Millions were starving outside, but inside, they were surrounded by bags of rice, wheat, potatoes, enough to keep them alive for years. But they refused to touch any of it, because those seeds represented the survival of the world. Not just Leningrad, not just Russia, the world. Imagine that. Scientists sitting in freezing rooms, their fingernails cracking, their legs trembling from hunger, surrounded by edible food, but refusing to eat even a single seed. By the end of the siege, 9 scientists died of starvation, protecting a vault full of food. They died surrounded by the very thing that could have saved them. You can't invent loyalty like that. You can't train devotion like that. You can only believe in something greater than yourself. And that's what they did.
After the war, the vault survived, but the Soviet government hid it. Part of it was moved, parts were duplicated. Some were locked in underground chambers. Some were transported across Siberia on secret trains. Some were rumored to be buried in reinforced bunkers designed to withstand nuclear strikes. For decades, Western intelligence agencies speculated about a Soviet agricultural super project, something involving genetics, food security, and Cold War survival. But details were almost non-existent. What we now know is this: the Soviet Union created multiple doomsday vaults. Some were official, some were secret. 1 or 2 were so hidden that even Russia lost records of them. And at least one of those vaults was designed to survive nuclear war. But no one knew where it was. Not the CIA, not British intelligence, not even modern Russian scientists. Until an expedition in the late 1990s uncovered something astonishing: a sealed chamber, steel reinforced, frozen, untouched since the era of Stalin. What they found inside changed everything.
For nearly half a century, the world forgot about the vault. The Cold War rose and fell. The Soviet Union collapsed under its own weight. Borders shifted, empires dissolved, nations were reborn. But beneath the chaos, beneath the headlines, beneath the political transformations that reshaped Eurasia, the vault waited, silent, buried, frozen in time. In the summer of 1998, a team of Russian botanists, geneticists, and archivists traveled into the outskirts of Novosibirsk, deep in Siberia's scientific heartland. They were searching for abandoned Soviet research facilities, structures built quickly, forgotten quickly, and left to rot after the collapse of the USSR. But this team wasn't looking for weapons.
They weren't looking for missiles, laboratories, or classified files. They were looking for Vavilov's ghost. Not literally, though the Siberian forests could make any shadow feel haunted, but for the part of his seed collection that had vanished during the Cold War. The team leader was Dr. Irina Petrovna Sokolova, a geneticist in her early 40s, with a reputation for digging through the Soviet archives like an archaeologist. She had spent 10 years studying Vavilov's field notes, travel journals, and the handwritten lists of seeds he collected across 5 continents. One detail kept bothering her. There were missing samples, entries in Vavilov's papers that did not match anything found in the official collections in Leningrad. Crops from Ethiopia, wild grains from the Middle East, rare mountain barley from Central Asia, a strange rice variant he collected from a remote valley in China. Where were they? The archives had no answer. The Russian Academy of Sciences had no answer. But buried in a dusty box in an abandoned storage room, Irina found a single clue. Secondary Vault, Project R17, Novosibirsk Perimeter, 1948 reconstruction. It was written on a brittle folder, dated the year after Vavilov's death. It was enough. So in August 1998, her team followed the coordinates, maps, and architectural sketches until they stood before a hill covered with birch trees and wild grass. It didn't look like a military site. It didn't look like a laboratory. It didn't even look Soviet. It looked like nothing. But Irina's instincts screamed, "This is it."
They began clearing away brush, branches, and soil. Hours passed. Mosquitoes swarmed. The Siberian wind whispered through the birch leaves. Then one of the researchers, Mikhail, shouted, "I found something!" It was metal. A thin edge, rusted but unmistakable, sticking out from the ground like the rim of an old submarine hatch. The team dug faster. Within 20 minutes, they uncovered a steel door, heavily corroded but still intact. Above it was a faded Soviet emblem, barely recognizable but unmistakably the hammer and sickle. Below that, stamped into the metal, Régime crânien post-yadernie, storage mode post-nuclear. Someone had scratched another message into the steel, written by hand.
The team froze. A post-nuclear storage site? For seeds? Irina felt her heart pounding. If this was real, if this was legitimate, if the Soviets had actually constructed a nuclear-proof seed vault in the 1940s, it meant Vavilov's vision hadn't just survived, it had evolved into something the world never suspected. They immediately sent word to Moscow, requesting clearance to open the door. No one responded. After 7 days of waiting and fearing that looters might discover the site first, they took matters into their own hands. With portable generators, cutting torches, and every tool they could borrow from a local construction company, they opened the vault. The steel door groaned like something alive. Cold air spilled out. Air that had not touched the outside world for perhaps 50 years. A staircase descended into darkness. The temperature was just above freezing. The walls were lined with frost. Irina stepped inside first. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark. What she saw made her stop breathing. Rows of metal shelving, thousands of jars, thousands of cloth bags, stacks of index cards, handwritten catalogs, crates stamped with unfamiliar serial numbers, and on the far wall, a portrait of Nikolai Vavilov, covered in dust, still hanging where someone had placed it half a century before. Irina whispered, "My God, it's real."